Shahliza is a headmistress for an international school in KSA. Lovely. Thank you all for being here. Like I said, we have about 400 registrations for this webinar. I'm going to give it another minute for our participants to join up. And I think we will give this a start. What do you think, Greg?
Let's do it. No, let's go. And it's going to be recorded, am I right? So we can always send it out.
So even if you have missed the session, we will make sure you have the recording of the session. Thanks.
Perfect. Excellent.
Perfect. Yeah. So welcome, everyone. And thank you for being at our session for lesson planning and delivery. We know that lesson planning and delivery is a very crucial step towards creating a complete curriculum. And we want to make sure that we are here to support teachers with not only the content side of things, but and the planning, because you guys know how the planning works with the lesson, but also to understand what would be an effective way to deliver your lesson in your class. So I know that the planning side is there. Yes, I can plan a lesson, but how do I deliver or effectively this lesson that to my students, especially, in the given time now? I think they're very limited time that you have with those of you who've moved online. And this is actually a very much requested webinar. So we're here to help out, and I hope you find this useful. A brief overview about the session today. We will be doing a model lesson. So you will see how you can deliver a lesson in your classroom, like I said. And moving on, I am your moderator for today. My name is Sarah Shuja, and I'm a marketing manager at McGraw Hill. I'm here in the background. If you have any questions at all, or if you face any technical difficulties, I'm more than happy to help you. And we have a very special guest with us, Greg Ritchie, who is a humanities curriculum specialist at McGraw Hill. He's joining us from New York. He's quite universal. Last time he joined us, he was in Portland. I don't know if all of you remember. I'm still waiting for someone. I don't know. Do we have people from Egypt who joined us? Anyway, if you've joined us our session earlier, Greg delivered one for Impact Social Studies, I think about a month ago, to our Egypt audience, but he's back here with us today. So thank you, Greg, for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And those of you who don't know, Greg Ritchie is a K-5 social studies curriculum specialist, like I said, and he works extensively around the country, conducting workshops, sessions, and in-service presentations for teachers and helping them implement social studies. And he does this through a lot of interactive activities, real-life demonstration, and knowledge and best practices. So we're very happy that he's here to share some of the knowledge with us in this session. Yes, before I move on, Greg does have a handout for this session, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat box so you can download it. It's about session pacing, is it, Greg?
I think so, yes. Absolutely.
Yes, so this is a very important and a very nice handout. I will keep sharing it again and again. So, but I'm sharing it now at the start of the session. So ensure that you have the link, you can download it and be ready to when he is going to refer to it, this handout. And a couple of 2 slides for housekeeping before I begin or officially hand this over to Greg. We do recommend you close down any high networking app like Netflix, YouTube, any gaming platform, because this might affect the bandwidth of your webinar. And you also have the opportunity to ask Q&A, because towards the end of the session. So please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box and we can cover in the end. Equally, I think Greg can pick them as we go along. So I'll leave that for you. And some people are asking if we have the access to the recording. Yes, you will get the recording for this webinar after it's done. So we will be sharing it with you. And we will be also emailing the certificate of participation. I do know there is someone who asked in the chat box, is there a certificate? So yes, if you're attending the live session, you will get a certificate of this webinar, and we will make sure we send that over to you on email. So make sure you keep an eye on your inbox. I think I said make sure like 3 times.
No.
Moving on, the last slide from me just says we want to make sure that make this as interactive as possible. So use the chat box and use the Q&A box that's there. They're both on the right side of your screen, and you must have noticed that you're muted in this webinar, but make sure you can engage with us through the chat box on the Q&A box. On the right side, by the way, on the chat box, you can see right here, It's enabled all panelists and attendees. If you can just hit the drop-down button and select everyone, then all your colleagues and peers can view your comments. So make sure you just hit the drop-down button and select everyone. And not, I think currently it's set to host and panelist only. And I guess that's all from my side. I can stop sharing my screen for now, but I'm here in the background. If you have any questions at all or any queries, more than happy to help. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day, love session.
Well, thank you so much. What a wonderful and thorough introduction. Hello to you all. I echo everything that Sarish said. I welcome you and I thank you for having a full day already and then wanting and desiring to spend a little bit of time with me and us to make hopefully you a better teacher and more knowledgeable using this impact social studies curriculum, which covers grades kindergarten through 5th grade. So wherever you are, welcome. I wish we were all in one big room together, of course, but this is a pretty great solution otherwise. I'm going to ask Sarish, would you throw up that poll? I created, folks, a poll for you with just some questions. I would love this to take no more than 2 minutes. And it's just some introductory questions for me to kind of gauge your level of knowledge already with impact social studies. So I don't know if that's something that I can actually launch. Let's see here.
I've launched it. It's on the screen and
it's on the screen. Gosh, I don't even see it myself. That's amazing.
Oh, how do I do that?
No, I don't know. No, it's fine. Do you see my screen sharing? Because I am screen sharing.
Yes, absolutely. I see your screen.
It's so funny that I can't see it. So thank you. I wonder if I'm open. I've got the chat window open and the Q&A window. I've got too many. No, let's see. Oh, there it is over there. I see it on another screen, which shows that I've stopped sharing now, I know. So let's just, go ahead and go. I
can still see your screen, by the way.
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay. And it still says that impact slide and everything?
Absolutely. Correct.
Well, it's good that you're here. You can tell me what everyone sees. Hey, okay, so what are the 3 main sections? Hopefully, it says I can't even vote there. So I can't sway the voting here. Okay, go ahead and go to the next question. I think that's been up there long enough. Or are all the questions up there? Let's see. Poll, you're viewing the poll results. Okay.
Yes, one by one?
One by one, perfect. Well, yeah, let's just start with this one. So question 1, what are the 3 main, sorry if I didn't give you enough time to do the whole poll and I said to stop. I thought you were only looking at the first question. But let's just look at things really quickly. First of all, the majority is correct. The 3 main steps of the instructional path for impact are indeed engage, investigate, report, and take action. Love that. I kind of love that nobody chose the last one. I just made that up in my end. I was like, I want to make it kind of obvious that it's not right, but maybe. So, okay, go to the next one. Good job. The second question. Oh, we didn't even do this one. Nobody voted here. I wonder if we can relaunch it.
Oh, I've just relaunched the second one.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Oh, so you did 5 polls. I understand.
Correct. One after the other.
Got it. Oh my gosh. Perfect, everyone. This is a struggle for me, obviously. Okay, how many days does it take to get through a lesson? Let's do 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2,
Come on, 34
1.
people.
Oh my gosh, only 34. Come on. 2 choices there. You got a 50-50 shot. All right, go ahead and shut it down. We'll see if the majority is correct.
Share results. There you go.
Yes. Okay. This is just one big thing. If you know, or if you want to have one thing confirmed today about delivering a lesson using impact, one of the first things I share is that when we say lesson in impact, it doesn't mean one day of instruction. It's one lesson that can be taught over several days. And we'll talk about that as we get going here. Okay, poll number 3, go ahead.
I'm on a marathon. Done.
Sorry, you're doing a lot of work. What is a feature? What is a feature about the various parts of an impact lesson? Goodness, I wish I had a glass of water. While you're answering that, I'm going to get a quick glass of water.
Okay. Come on, audience. 9 people who have answered the question. I know there are more than, there are a lot of you on this session. So let us know, what is a feature about the various parts of an impact lesson? Is it A, each one can be short on-time delivery, or they can be delivered via print and digital, collaboration is built in to encourage student discussion, or all of the above? What do you think?
All right, let's close it up.
Done. There you go.
Yeah. Anytime you see that all of the above, right? I mean, sometimes we just know that that's likely to be, but I like collaboration is built in. If that's one thing that's true, the 9 of you that said that, I mean, obviously you're right. But also with the other one too. Okay, next question. I think we've got 2 more.
Yes.
Delivering the instruction online. What is the name of the button? Yeah, and folks, as you think about this, this is one feature I really want you to know. If you learn one thing today that you didn't, well, that's what learning is. If you learn one thing today, it's hopefully actually related to just explicitly this right here, because I think it provides so much ease in presenting and teaching a lesson in class with social studies. That was a hard sentence for me to get out, but go ahead and close it up there. We'll see if we are familiar with that. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't know this.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually, I mean, yeah. So presentation was actually the correct answer. So I actually appreciate that that wasn't known, because you don't really know that right away. So I want to make sure I teach that to you today. So we'll talk about presentation. Go ahead and go to the next one and we'll finish it up.
Last one. There you go.
Last one. Each lesson typically will begin and end for the student using content from which component? And you may not be using all 3. So there's 3 student components here: the Inquiry Journal, the Research Companion, and the Explorer magazine. Obviously, the Teacher's Edition is the Teacher's Edition. And you may not, you don't have to use all 3 of those. So you may not even have access to all of them, let alone in print or online. But typically when you begin a lesson or begin a chapter, you begin with certain parts, right? There's features, there's activities, there's questions. Those primarily are found in one of those top 3 components. So go ahead and close it out. We'll see if we primarily know the answer. And it's actually, okay, good. I love that I know this now. It's the Inquiry Journal was the correct answer. And I don't mind that you said the Teacher's Edition too, because that's what you're delivering instruction from. And that's what is leading you, and that's the purpose of our entire presentation here. So go ahead and close that down. And thank you everyone again for sharing that feedback. That's good feedback for me to know. Let's talk about chapters and lessons and just overall structure of a lesson. We have got, I'm going to check my time. We've probably got about 40 minutes. Yeah, it's I've got 17 minutes past the hour. And so in the next 40 minutes, I want to make sure that we're all on kind of a level playing field with basic structure of impact, chapters and lessons, and then look at how a lesson can be paced out over the course of several days. All right, because one of the first things we just learned or had confirmed was that a lesson takes more than 1 day to get all the way through. I mean, unless you got, 5 hours for social studies on Wednesdays. And if that's the case, then you can get through it in 1 day. And if that's the case, let me know and I want to come to your school. But anyway, I know that we did a little poll when people were logging on to see what grades you teach. So I appreciate all that. I know there was a lot of kindergarten teachers, which is fantastic, but also all of the other grades as well. What you see on the screen should be a little bit familiar for whatever grade you teach. These are the chapters of study that you have at your grades. So you can see anywhere between 5 and 8 chapters. And then the way impact is structured, and again, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, and you are going to learn new things if you already know this material, but I just want to make sure we're on a level playing field and we have this foundational knowledge and understanding every one of those chapters. So I'm going to go back one screen, right? So here's grade 3. So let's look at just grade 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters, and there they are right there, okay? And then if you look inside one of those particular chapters, and this is true for all of the grades, so I'm not just speaking to those of you that teach grade 3. Let's look at just chapter 5. If we put that at the top of the screen, one thing you have probably learned is that no matter the component, every chapter is framed with what's called an essential question, or some people call it a compelling question. It really drives that inquiry process, builds, we call it building on the natural curiosity that kids have. So in this case, we're just looking at I just picked a random chapter, chapter 5, which is all about American citizens, symbols, and government. And then the essential question that drives that learning is going to be, why do governments and citizens need each other? And then inside that chapter, this one particular chapter, there happens to be 6 lessons. All right. So what you could in theory do, this is what a teacher kind of just deducted one time. I was giving a training because they were asking me, how long does it take to get through one lesson? And I said, I told them, well, honestly, it varies a little bit. Generally speaking, it's about a week's worth of time. But depending on how much time during the day you have for social studies instruction, that can vary. If you've got a lot of time, if you've got 45 minutes every day, you can move through a lesson more quickly. If you've got 20 minutes 3 times a week, you might be 5 or 6 days of instruction. So that can vary, and that's one thing I wanted to share and just kind of walk you through a little bit today. But here's what that teacher shared with me, which was almost like deduction, right? You learn something and then you did like math. So if you're really trying to figure out how long a lesson is going to take for you, and you're pacing out your entire year, you can of course do it a little bit this year for the remainder of this year, but especially let's just say you were at the beginning of a new year. Take all the weeks and all the days that you have for teaching during that school year, divide it into, in this case, let's just say we were a 3rd grade, divide this into 6 chapters. So take that entire year, divide it into 6 blocks of time, and then divide every one of those blocks into 6, in this case, various parts as well that are generally all equal. And that'll give you your answer. Because generally speaking, this curriculum was designed to be taught. Obviously, you're going to get through the whole book, but sometimes you're not, or you're going to have focuses and things like that. But I mean, hopefully that makes sense. What that teacher shared with me is well, all I have to do then is just kind of basically divide my calendar into, in this case, 6 chapters, and then divide those chapters into the lessons, and then that'll tell me how long it takes to get through a lesson. And I said, exactly. So hopefully that provide some understanding. Let me walk you through a lesson. Cerise shared that we were going to do kind of like a mock lesson today. And let's just kind of do that. I'm going to do it from the lens of 3rd grade, I believe. Yeah, so it's actually that same lesson. But listen, if you teach 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, the sequence is exactly the same for all of those grades. So pay less attention, if you're one of the other grade teachers, to the details of these pages, but pay really close attention to what the headers are, to what the parts of the lesson are. I'm going to use the word short on time activities. So pay attention when I say that too. Kindergarten, you're a little bit different here. And if we have a moment, I'll walk you through online live, just some differences with you. You're such great teachers anyway. I find that kindergarten teachers are always brilliant, as are all of you. But, you kind of sometimes, go to the beat of your own drum. And so I'll walk you through some differences that you might not be aware of a little bit later if you don't know those already. But generally speaking, this is exactly true for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I've got my chapter. I've got my chapter header. This is the title of the chapter, which again, think about it. It might be 5 or 6 weeks long to get through all 6 of these lessons. It's framed with this essential question. There's always going to be this paragraph here to introduce the chapter. And there's always going to be this prompt here called Talk About It, which is an explicit prompt to have kind of a collaborative conversation for students. It helps build discourse. That's something that's very intentional in this curriculum. So students can talk to each other, and maybe they have questions, or maybe one student knows something about governments in the country that they live and how governments in the United States are different. And the classmate might have a different awareness or understanding. So right away, they're engaging with each other, and they're building on knowledge and understanding that we all come into the classroom with different ideas and knowledge bases, and that can empower all of us. Over on the right page, you're always going to find every chapter, every grade. including kindergarten, has an inquiry project. So this is a project-based learning activity that's designed to span the course of the whole chapter. We're just at the chapter right now. I know we were going to walk through a lesson, we're going to, but a couple things just at this chapter level first. But this inquiry project can also be a nice performance task assessment. I'll say that again. It can also be a nice performance task assessment where you can gauge their learning and understanding by having them do something of actual performance, like deliver an inquiry project or work with others. And there's a rubric for this as well in the teacher's edition. So that's always going to be right there. You're going to turn the page, or I'm turning the page virtually, and this is literally the next page. And this is true for kindergarten too. Kindergarten, it's your vocabulary words are actually presented oftentimes in a song, and there's less words to make it more, of course, adapted and appropriate for your students. But for grades 1 through 5, you're always going to see this 2-page spread called Explore Words. Here in this case, you've got 10 words or groups of words that are going to be presented later in context in one of the lessons. This activity right here, I mentioned I was going to talk about short on time activities. If there's a few things I really want you to catch on today. One was the presentation tool, which I haven't shown you yet. But the other one is this, where all of these activities are designed to be done in a short amount of time. Because what we find, especially here in the United States, is that social studies doesn't get a lot of time during each day. There's more focus on literacy, ELA, math. So you don't have like an hour and a half or a 90-minute block for social studies usually. So every one of these parts of the lesson can be done successfully in completion in maybe 10 to 20 minutes. So if during your block of time, all you've got is 20 minutes or you've got 30 minutes, then you can just keep working through this chapter or keep working through the lesson, doing one part at a time, rather than having a lesson presented to you that is this big all-encompassing thing, and you have to figure out kind of like where to stop, and it stops abruptly, and you're going to come back to this page because you couldn't read the whole story or you couldn't ask all the questions. Hopefully every one of these little activities can be done in completion on the day that you teach it. Okay, hopefully that made sense there. So I'm going to turn the next page, like this right here. Honestly, it's 5 minutes. Like, hey students, look at this word volunteer. Would you put a checkbox or a check mark on the box that most closely connects and represents your level of understanding with this word? Maybe you know that word and you can tell me what volunteer means. Great. Or maybe you've heard that word and you are not quite sure what it means, but you've definitely heard the word volunteer before, or you honestly have never heard the word before. And that's okay. There's no wrong answer, because we're going to come back to this when we get familiar with this word during the course of the lesson over the next several weeks or the next several days, whatever it is. Sorry, right? So that literally was about 25 seconds maybe. And then students just go through this, or you can go through that yourselves with them. So that's what I mean by a short on time activity. Now we're into the beginning of lesson 1. So I'm just turning the page. By the way, which component am I in? I'm in that inquiry journal, which is the first one that drives that lesson instruction. Every lesson, all grades, always begins with these lesson outcome questions, which I simply refer to as the what, the why, and the how. What am I learning? Why am I learning it? And how will I know that I learned it? They kind of, students are often asking, right? You've probably had this experience too. Why do I need to learn this? Kids are, at least here in the United States, or I think that was something I asked, or my students when I was teaching, that was something I got asked a lot, which is a good question. They should know why they need to learn something. And this introduces that right from the beginning. There's a man, a researcher here in the United States named John Hattie, who's done a lot of work into how students learn in the most efficient ways. And one thing that he discovered was that they learn by having an idea of what the end is at the beginning of their learning, knowing or learning with the end in mind. So that's really something our team, I was not on that team when this was written, when Impact was created, but the authors, they all wanted that intentionally put into, with that idea put into every lesson for every one of your grades. So you're always going to find that. Okay. And again, that might take 5 or 10 minutes. That might be your entire day of social studies for Tuesday or whatever. And then you come back the next day and now you're on this activity. So now I'm just working through the lesson. And now I'm on this part of the lesson called Analyze the Source. Analyze the source is always a 2-page spread. I think even in kindergarten, it's usually 2 pages where you're just doing some but you're doing some source analysis of maybe a primary source or a secondary source or a map or an infographic or something. And you're following this little routine here of inspecting, finding evidence, and making connections. Students are going to become really familiar with that routine. It's always that 3-step process. Inspect, find evidence. Maybe we're going to reread something for a purpose, and then make connections, so important, to their own lives. That connects to like the why. A lot of teachers have shared with me, and this doesn't surprise me because it was true for me when I was in the classroom too. This aligns so much with what you're also teaching in ELA and language arts and reading, where you're asking students and teaching them how to reread for a different purpose. Maybe you're doing a quick scan at first and then you're reading more deeply. So that same strategy you can now apply to social studies. Turning the page. So maybe that, again, just to keep reiterating this point, every one of these parts of this lesson can be, again, short on time. Maybe that's the end of your day, and now here's Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it is. You're going to come back, and now students open up to page 198, and it's almost like you're beginning a lesson, but you're just beginning a part within that lesson. So this one's called inquiry tools. And again, thinking about that connection between language arts and social studies, let's take the idea of main idea and details and apply that to social studies content. So this walks you right through it. By the way, talking about walking you through it, the teacher's edition just walks you through this entire sequence too. Now here on the right page, now we're going to go in and we'll do our research. We're going to do our investigation, as it says there, investigate. And to do that, we primarily find content from the research companion. If you have this, or if students have this book in print where you teach, you know it's a hardbound book. It's got a red band across the top, and it's a hardbound book. It looks like a traditional, at least what I'm familiar with, a traditional social studies book or student book, as opposed to the paperback consumable inquiry journal, which is what that blue book is. If your students have that blue inquiry journal, you're going to get a new set of those every year. That's a consumable. And the pages you can tear out, it's perforated and all those things. I always say keep that inquiry journal in the desk for the students, or their cubby, or whatever system you have in your classroom. That's their social studies book. This research companion, I would say just leave it on the shelf, or leave it somewhere where they don't need to use it, because they're not going to use it every day. So they don't need to cram it in their desk and have another social studies book in their desk. But here at this point in the lesson, now we're going to go into content from the research companion. I love it. It's so clear. It's so easy. Students, read pages 206 to 215. As you do, we're going to work on this graphic organizer, work through this graphic organizer. So they're going to leave that inquiry journal open on their desk. Meanwhile, we're going to open up the research companion, and you're going to find all these articles and stories related to the idea of that lesson. What makes democracy work? Right? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. One thing that I want you to notice about these articles, because it's true for every one of your grades, they're all short. You aren't going to find an article in here that's 6 pages long even. And we did that intentionally, not because students can't read a 6-page article, but because the time that you have usually to teach social studies doesn't allow for that long of a read, because you're going to introduce it, you're going to open up the inquiry journal, you're going to have them, get out their graphic organizers, the pen, the paper. Some students going to walk in late, there'll be a fire alarm, whatever there's going to be, and then pretty much social studies is over. So look at how short every one of these stories is. If you have time to get through several of them, terrific. But if you don't, you're still going to have, I think, success in the classroom, where you can differentiate learning. Students or teachers have shared with me that they'll do, share these out in small groups, table groups, things like that. So I'm excited to actually learn. Maybe we can have more dialogue in the future, and I can learn from you how you implement a lot of this content in your classrooms as well. They all end with this little feature called stop and check, where students get to kind of gauge their own learning a little bit, and you can make sure that they're on track learning what they should. Like right there, it says, discuss with a partner why the US Constitution was written. If they can't answer that, maybe go back and we'll reinforce some learning or find where that was articulated and make sure that we can kind of confirm our learning. But I'm just going to flip through the rest of these pages here. I mean, look at 2 pages, This one's 2 pages, ends with a stop and check. This one's 2 pages. We're learning about governments around the world. Hey, South Africa. I know somebody from here or on this webinar is actually in South Africa and teaches in South Africa. How fantastic. It's exciting for me because I don't get to teach and work with teachers from all over the world very often. So I love this today with you. But anyway, you see the point here, right? So here's one, like this might be all you do in social studies. This partnered with that graphic organizer to help students take notes as they go along. And that's it. Also, I'm going to back up. I don't want to confuse you here. This isn't part of this specific lesson, but there's 2 things that are part of the chapter that I want to make sure that you know are here. One is a feature called People You Should Know, which are 4 quick biographies connected to the content, right? And then another one is a longer piece of literature, and it's called Connect Through Literature. It might be only 2 pages, but it might be 8 pages. So it's just a piece of literature that's in there. A lot of teachers will use this, like, maybe whenever you have your reading time, if you read aloud to your students and maybe they're around you in the circle or up front at the beginning of the day or after recess when they're tired, whatever, and you have something to read to them, some teachers have shared that they'll use this as their piece of literature for their read aloud time because it is appropriate and it relates to what they're learning about in social studies. Okay, now let's just wrap up the lesson. The lesson ends, it begins right here. You can see, right? I was in the inquiry journal to start, and then I went to the research companion, and now I'm back in the inquiry journal for this one final piece right here. If I turn the page, I'm now at the beginning of lesson 2. So this is it. And it ends with this feature called Report Your Findings. This is so different from when I was teaching 10 years ago, where it didn't have this level of intentionality, where students have to reflect and take a stand and do something with what they've learned. It was just more static learning. But here they think about it, they take a stand, write about it, write a list of ideas. It says, work with a partner to write a list of items that might be in a classroom constitution. And that actually connects to the inquiry project that they're working on. Talk about it, compare and contrast. So you get the idea. So that's just a quick overview of a lesson itself. So maybe you're already thinking in your own context, in your own classrooms, how would this kind of come to light and play itself out in a week's worth of time or 2 weeks worth of time? How many days would this take? And that's something that you get to answer. You don't have to create your own lesson. You don't have to make up the order or change the sequence. But hopefully those parts of those lessons are going to become more familiar. What I would love for you to be able to do, this isn't going to be a test or anything, but maybe by the end of the year, you would even have this down so well that you would be able to memorize and quickly say all the various parts of the lesson, like lesson outcome questions, analyze the source, inquiry tools, research companion, where I go and read those articles and stories, and then I come back for this final piece called Report Your Findings. Okay, so it'll just become more and more familiar the more you get used to it. At the very end of all those lessons, you get to the very last page of the chapter before chapter 2 in the inquiry journal, and you see this. Take action, which is just a connection back to that inquiry project. It's, you've got a whole checklist that literally the work is done for you. Here's what students should do to complete it. Here's what they should do to share it with their classmates and yourself, and then to reflect on it after they do. It's just all spelled right out there for you. And as you know, we've talked about this already. This is all framed with this idea of inquiry and teaching with the understanding of this arc of inquiry. There's also that magazine. So I haven't touched on this too much today, partly because it's not connected to the lesson itself, but all the content that's in this beautiful magazine called the Impact Explorer magazine, it all pertains to the entire chapter itself. So at any point in the lessons, you can pull in one of these articles and stories that are all visually really appealing for kids. Kids love these. Grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are all lexiled for you as well. So if you want to differentiate your instruction based on those lexiles, you have the ability to do that. Here's an example. So I don't know, this is still grade 3. I'm just sticking with this one chapter for consistency. You can see what these are like. You've probably seen these already. They're all one thing that hit me right away is like every one of these articles, again, are all 2 pages. There's no 8-page article right here. Not that students wouldn't enjoy it, but again, thinking about that time that social studies has, it just makes it so accessible digestible, doable, whatever verb you want to use. All right, so this is, yeah, and there's a vocabulary that's brought in as well, things like this, that became a law. So I just wanted to take a deeper walk through. If you were with me during the last webinar that I did, we kind of did a lesson walkthrough like this, but it was from a different lens. It was more quickly, and we didn't think about it as much from the idea of delivering a lesson to your students. So hopefully that helped there. We've got about 15 or 20 minutes left. So with that remaining time, I want to focus on the Impact Online platform and specifically make sure that you understand and see a landing page and also what that presentation tool is that I was mentioning earlier. So I think now, whoops, not that one. Let's see, hang on with me just 1 second if you would. I'm gonna close this page and I'm gonna share a new share and I'm gonna share this right here. Am I sharing my screen now? Yes, Sarish, you can tell me if I'm not, but it says that I'm screen sharing. So folks, I'm just logged into my own demo account. I know you all access your curriculum in different ways. Sometimes there's different kind of single sign-ons, things like that. And I'm just reading really quickly a couple things that were in the chat box to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So it sounds like we're just doing just fine and on track. So what I didn't get to show you at all last time, if any of you were with me before, was anything kind of online here. I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger so you can see that whole screen there. Excellent. So folks, this is the dashboard, and most of you have seen something that looks like this for whatever grade you teach. The dashboard looks pretty much the same. These tabs over here take you to right where, it's very intuitive. It takes you to right where you would want to go. Here's a block of content here, a block of additional content here, but we're gonna focus primarily with this area right here where it says, where do you wanna go? Browse your course. Before that, let me just make sure I share with you the ebooks right here, right? These ebooks, if I open up, for instance, that research companion, excuse me. So it's gonna take me, I'm live here on the internet connection. It opens up, first of all, it's always gonna open up to the page that you were last on, okay? Which I think is a nice thing. If you wanna switch to a different page, look where my mouse is. And this is being recorded, folks, so if I go too quickly through something, first of all, I apologize. Second of all, don't panic that you wouldn't be able to go back over it again because you're gonna get this link for the recording where you can fast forward through all the stuff I just yacked about, and then you can watch this part. But click on contents, and then, it's literally your table of contents right here. So if I wanna go straight to chapter 4, connect through literature, or into a lesson, I can go right to it. And now there's those articles, which a lot of teachers, especially, I'll say this, in grades kindergarten and first grade especially, I've talked to a lot of teachers that are already using Impact here in the United States, and many of them tell me that they do not have their students all with their own research companion because it's just they just can't read it. The text is too complex at that level. So what the teacher does is it's more teacher-led instruction, and maybe the teacher is the teacher is projecting through their digital projection system, a smart board or a computer or a whiteboard or whatever it might be, Apple TV. You're projecting the research companion. So you're projecting this ebook here. So that's something you can do. And if that's the case, this is the way to do it. Now, I realize you can't see that. You could, like if I was projecting this from my kids in my classroom, they wouldn't be able to read it. So if I click this button right here, everyone see where I'm pointing? This is one good thing to know. Switch to single page view. Whoa, great. Now I'm just looking at one page and I'm zoomed in. So I can literally scroll up and down and more, okay? I can zoom in more if I want. So if I just want my students to read this paragraph right here, and I can navigate this. So if I want to highlight that chapter right there, great. I've highlighted it by selecting that text. And then when I release on my trackpad, I'm on a MacBook Pro right now, what about a mouse or whatever, then you get to, add some annotations as well. You can underline it. You can put a box around it. You can put a circle around it. You can add a note or a bookmark, or you can have that text, only that text that's highlighted, read aloud to students. at different speeds. So that's a nice feature too, where you can select the text that you want to have read to you. All right. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of navigational help right there. Can I give you one more teacher tip? It's this icon right here. If you haven't used this before and you have opened up these ebooks, I think this is maybe just my personality. So if you're not like this, that's fine. I like this tab right here because if I click it like I just did, it's now opening up that ebook, which is this right here, into its own tab. And if you're familiar with the way that web browsers work, you've got a window and then you can open up multiple tabs. And what I just did was launch that ebook, which was only what we call a pop-up window, into its own tab. Let me actually do all of that again. Okay, sometimes that might be helpful. Here's where I was. This is where I was. Same screen I was just on. I hadn't changed anything. Because you know, look at this. Look in the background. You can actually see it's not its. It's on its own page here, but you can see it's kind of a pop-up window because it is. But if I click this right here, open a new tab, now you're going to have two tabs, or you're going to see two tabs in my window. I've got this original tab over here, right? This one's still here. And let me actually close out of this. I'm going to close that player. And now I'm back on my dashboard. But look at that. Now I'm going to come over here where my arrow is now to the new tab. And there's my ebook for this research companion. And now I can, again, go down, or this is the page I was on, but now I can go to single page view. I can zoom in, do whatever I want. And then I can teach from here. But then if I need to go back to my dashboard for any reason, I can go back to my dashboard. Okay, so let's do this. In the remaining about 13 minutes, I bet we have 14 minutes I've got with you. Let me just show you a couple things about the landing page, and then I want to introduce some documents to you, which we're sharing with you as well. All right, specifically that one called the Suggested Lesson Pathways document, which I think is really going to help you as you continue to plan for the rest of the year. I mentioned landing pages, though, and I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, what is a landing page? By the way, thank you, Suresh. She just put in the chat box again. You're so good, Suresh. Because if you didn't see it before, anyway, she just put in a link where you can download that PDF document. Maybe don't do it this second, or go ahead and do it, but then come back here and let's pay attention. All right, so let me look at this. Look at where my hand is. I'm going to click on browse your course, and here is now more arrows. And anytime you see an arrow, just click it, right? It means, hey, there's more inside. So here's literally what I call these. When I click on one of these little titles right here, it's going to take me to a landing page, which is literally all the content from that lesson, like that we just looked at using that PowerPoint. There's all the content, but it's going to be individualized into individual little resources. Okay, so let's just pick one. How about European powers in America? So I'm clicking on it. It's going to take me to a new page. Here's where I am. Chapter 2, lesson 3. I'm in grade 5, by the way, if I didn't say that. I'm going to close that just to simplify things. There's a new version available. If I want to change to a different chapter, look at this right here. That button, I click it, table of contents, navigate somewhere else. You know, if you haven't just explored this on your own, just the best way to learn it is just by clicking and doing things and practicing, and, you know, just the thing, like the same things you would tell your students. Do things a few times, like this right here. Down here where it says show lesson 3 info. You're like, wait, what is that? I don't know. Click it. There it is. There's a connection to the essential question. There's my objectives for the lesson, and there's some background information. Like, okay, great. Do I need to see that every day that I'm in this lesson with my students? No, probably just at the beginning of the lesson. So I'm going to hide it. Okay. And then as you look at this, look at all this. I'm scrolling down the landing page. And one thing I see over here on the right side are more arrows, which means, hey, click it, see what's in there. And this is what's in here, is more of these little thumbnail resources that are all obviously organized in some manner. And when I click on one of these, let's just click on this one. Oh, it's a pop-up window. I can see that right away. And what I've clicked on is one resource. This looks like the inquiry journal, because this looks to me, I mean, like if I'm pretending like I was you. Boy, Greg, this looks very similar to the lesson that you were walking through using the PowerPoint about a half hour ago. because and absolutely it is, because I told you every lesson in every grade always begins with these lesson outcome questions. So this looks like you're in the inquiry journal, and to a certain extent you are, but all it is, this is really important, this is the main focus of one thing I wanted to leave you with today. All it is just this one page or this one spread from this lesson, which is all about these lesson outcome questions. That's it. And then if I open up this one right here, or if I open up this one, each one of these little resources is its own individual piece. I can't turn the pages. There's no pages to turn because I'm not really in the ebook. I'm just showing one part from that lesson. Because what we've done, by we, I mean McGraw Hill and the development team and the people who sit behind the computer and are really tech smart that I'm not, you know, coding and all those things. What we've done intentionally is individualize or chunk out or compartmentalize every one of those parts from that lesson for two reasons. The first reason is the one I'm most excited about, is that you can then include this in what's called a presentation. And guess what? We've already included the ones that we think you're going to use in a lesson for you. So when I click on launch presentation right here, it's as if I'm opening up kind of a PowerPoint. I know some of you, or I think most of you, answered that question with PowerPoint. If you've opened this up before, it kind of looks like you're working through a PowerPoint, because now I can go through all those individual resources one by one, and maybe they're in different components. Maybe some are from the research companion. Maybe some are from the inquiry journal. Maybe one's a video. But whatever they are, they're all in one ready-made presentation right now. Watch this. Look at what I'm look at what I'm going to click on right here. Open tray. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to close the X. What do you think the X does? It closes the tray, right? So I'm going to open it again. Okay. But look at this. Now I'm going to take two fingers and scroll along. Here's all those different parts that I'm talking about. Every one of these little things are all individualized parts from that lesson that are all now put into this presentation. So if I'm a teacher and I'm working through this particular lesson, all I have to do is click launch presentation, and then I'm literally, watch this, next resource. Here's two, I think, or maybe one, three vocabulary words that are from that overall chapter feature called Explore Words that are part of the vocabulary context and that are in this specific lesson. Next resource. Analyze the source, right? We saw this feature or part of a lesson in grade 3 a minute ago. Next resource. Inquiry tools. And maybe this is it for the end of the teaching day. Now, but watch this. If it's not, and you're projecting this lesson, you're delivering this instruction for your students, and you're showing this right here, if you're using this presentation player, guess what the next resource is? I actually wish I was with you right now, because I would literally ask you that question where I would encourage you to answer me. So think about it though. What would the next resource from this lesson be? I know that you've never probably seen this lesson unless you're a 5th grade teacher. And even if you have, you may not even be in whatever chapter we're in, chapter 2, maybe you are. But even any grade, what do you think comes next based on what we learned today? I wish I had a poll. And I know you don't know the exact thing, but if you're thinking to yourself, well, something from the research companion, because it was at this point, Greg, that you went into the research companion as it prompts you to over here, read pages 94 to 103 in your research companion. Guess what? The next thing we're going to see is page 94, I bet. Watch it be wrong, but that's what I imagine. Oh, I am wrong. Yes. Here's a different interactive, that's actually really cool, a different interactive feature from one of these inquiry tool activities. We could talk about that later, but let me just go to the next resource. And here, in fact, is page 96. Nope, it's a little bit of a timeline. All right. So I'm going to open this tray in a minute. You're going to see this pretty soon. Yeah, here it is. I mean, because those last two things that I came across were very cool things that are worth learning about kind of on your own. But look at, here we are, sorry, not page 96, but page 94. So my point though with that is that everything is in this one-stop shop where you don't, because otherwise if this wasn't the case and you didn't have this presentation player, you would literally have to, you'd be in an ebook and you would be projecting the inquiry journal. Hey, students, this is where you should be, or look down here. And then you would have to close that and then open up the ebook for the research companion, go to that chapter and lesson, which is fine. It just takes you a lot of unnecessary time to do that. Here, you've got it all in one place. So I've got this open tray. Let me just go back to this. So here, yeah, so there was like that little inquiry tools, a different way of using an inquiry tools about maps, some really neat stuff, the timeline. And now we're here for this, looking at this beginning part of this lesson. I get this question sometimes at this point of a training. I'll get the lesson. Well, can I edit this? Yeah, of course you can. We wouldn't want to make a program for you that you wouldn't be able to customize and edit. So look at right next to where I clicked launch presentation. Now I can click on edit and I get that tray built up right away. And guess what I can do? I can shift these around in a different order. So maybe let's actually put that the way that I was thinking it was going to go. There's my lesson outcome questions, analyze the source, inquiry tools. Here's that really interactive way of using those maps, which, hey, learn about those on your own, but that wasn't the purpose of today's training. Look at all these ones that are grayed out. Why are they grayed out? Well, because we didn't think that you probably would want to have that in your presentation, but if you do want it in there, look at that, add to the presentation. Great, now it's in there. But here's that first page. So I'm gonna slide this one all the way over, and that's gonna be right next to where I left off right here. Okay, now it's saved, just kind of saved automatically. I closed that box. And now I can close that entire kind of editing player. And now when I launch the presentation again, as you can see here, I'm going to open up the tray. And now here it is, analyze the source. And there's my inquiry tools. And then right there is the next slide right here for that first spread. So just a little example there of how you can customize and edit a presentation. If you didn't catch every step that I did, listen, try it on your own. Nobody taught me how to do that. Honestly, nobody instructed me, and I'm not the brightest guy in the world. So just you aren't going to mess anything up. Maybe some of you are thinking right now, is that saved? If I log out right now, is the customized presentation that I just made, is that going to be saved for tomorrow? Like you're going to lesson plan and prepare for tomorrow's lesson? And the answer is yes. So it's in there. It's saved in your account until you change it again. Okay, so that, if nothing else, and we've got 4 minutes to go, so perfect timing. That was one thing I really wanted to share with you, was about that presentation player. And just a review of what else is in here. This is all those other things that are in that lesson, inquiry tools, and then where they investigate, and here's those articles and stories. But there's so many neat kind of technology and interactive pieces of content that are part of this kind of empowering digital platform. Exploring a map, there's a lesson video. I wish we had time to open all these things and be like, oh, I want to use that, whatever it is. That's not the purpose of today's training though. I wanted to really have a focus on delivering a lesson and some tips for how to make a lesson work. And of course, what we addressed before that was how to pace out a lesson and what it's comprised of. I'm going to wrap up here because I want to respect your time. I'm going to click on my document that is in the link that Sarish put this in the link. I'm now going to share my screen here, and I'm going to share this right here. Let's see, you can all see my screen there. So this is what the link pulls up for you. So you all have access to this. You can download it, put it on your own computer. Listen, if this isn't helpful to you, delete it. But my colleagues and I that work at McGraw Hill, and we were all teachers at different grades, we all thought, well, let's put a little, almost a graphic organizer for you as teachers, as you think about what to put for Wednesday or what you're going to do tomorrow for social studies. If you've got 15 minutes, if you've got 30 minutes, if you've got 45 minutes, how do I make that work? And I think this bottom section where it says all of the components, using the inquiry journal and the research companion and the magazine, just some suggestions. I mean, it's literally self-explanatory, right? Day one, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce that essential question, probably reflect on it, have students have some collaboration. I'm going to show a video online. Every chapter online has its own video. And then I'm going to introduce that vocabulary. That's it. Day two, I'm going to do some review. I might bring in that longer piece of literature. And then I'm going to introduce people you should know, those 4 biographies. And then I'm going to get into the lesson finally on day 3. And you just kind of go through it. So, and then I think at the bottom of here, here's some additional things, right? If I had a whole day with you, we would have so much fun exploring all those things, and you can make a list of what your favorites are and everything. But this last page down here is kind of like your graphic organizer where you can fill in the blanks yourself. So if you want to do this, I don't know if you find this helpful, then use it. I hope you do. So that, folks, is 59 minutes after the hour. And as a teacher, I never wanted to have these trainings go any longer after a full day of teaching, as I know you all have. So thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for this time. Was this helpful? Can you put in the chat box? Don't tell me what I want to hear, but if this was helpful, I know Suresh and I would love some feedback. Just yes, helpful, no, I still have lots of questions, whatever it might be. Tell us so we know how to best help you in the future. Thank you, Fatima. Okay, I see a thumbs up. Feel free to put a thumbs down. I can take it. All right. And I'm going to turn it back over to Suresh so she can wrap it up. Thank you, Miriam. And Suresh, I assume you're there.
Yes,
right?
I'm here.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Any questions for us? Please let us know now. And that was a great session, by the way, Greg. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I just love doing it, and it's fun. I know I couldn't really see any of you, but I mean, honestly, how exciting for me to.
But everyone stayed on, by the way, for the session and took time.
Great. Well, 1 hour is a good amount of time. Like if it was 2 hours, I think we're less inclined to even show up. But yeah, and I would love to. Yeah, I just wish we could all kind of be together. I've been to Syria. I don't know if I told you that.
No, I didn't know.
I've been to in 2006. I think I went to Damascus. I have some family. My brother is married to a woman from Syria. So
wow.
Yeah. So I just had the most amazing month there before a lot of things now, of course, are destroyed. But you're welcome, everyone. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Do you have any questions for Greg? Please let us know. Hiba Ismail says, thank you. You're very welcome. And then who else wants to say any questions, guys? No questions at all for Greg? Sorry about that background noise.
No, I love it. I love it.
I actually had to mute myself. Anyways, do we have, and just about the right time, right? Just about the right time.
Samira, yes, I know. Yeah, Samira, I know. I'm so fortunate. I have a nephew, my brother and his wife, they have a boy who was in Syria, like when he was a baby, to introduce him to his family in Syria, but he hasn't been back and they won't want him, of course. Whenever things calm down over there and it's safe, and I think we're all going to go back.
Okay. And Samira says, great that you visited Syria before the war.
I know.
Okay. I guess no questions now. And
I'd love to visit
I can say
Lebanon.
bye for now. You will have the recording of this session. I do want to tell everyone that we do have other model lesson webinars. So the one that Greg covered today is only for impact, but we do have others for Wonders and Inspire Science and Reveal Math and all of the lovely programs that we have for McGraw Hill. And if you're teaching any of those programs and you want to know that, for example, I think tomorrow we have Reveal, and we have a Reveal Math session, and we also have an Inspire K8 session. You can register yourself right about there. I have given the link to the registration link. So just log on there and make sure that you register for the sessions tomorrow. There's also one for Wonders later in the week. But I just want to thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Greg, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.